What is a long hunter? And long hunters were the guys that were unhappy and discontent with their hunting life along the East Coast, like the Daniel Boones and the Davy Crockett's. What they did on foot and later on horseback, that's what we did with airplanes.
It is a very fascinating story taking us into Alaska and seeing the beautiful vistas of Alaska, in addition to hearing a fascinating story by the lead, who also produced it, Mark Rose, who tells us about 3 interventions he goes through. Initially, he says he's an atheist, but after each of these interventions where his life is miraculously saved, he ends up finding God and becoming a Christian. So it's an interesting tale. I love the way they have younger actors depicting the 2 main characters when they were young. It's wonderfully done. There are also some really great paintings that happen throughout the piece where time is frozen in a gorgeous painting of some of the exploits they go through. And I just love the music, the classical music below, keeping the pace and the tone of the different scenes in the movie, the excitement when they're rescued. It is just an incredible film. I feel like I've been to Alaska. It is a must-see for anyone who's interested in that part of the world. The shots above of the caribou and the incredible moving testimony of this fellow and his adventure that he goes through and his brush with death many, many times. And I love the interviews of the other people too, the indigenous woman and the other locals and the snowy vistas. And it's just a beautiful film. And it's a testament to bravery and someone taking a big journey, a big arc in their life, going from atheism to someone who has more of a spiritual life. Great film. I really, really enjoyed this one.
Hadn't seen this side of Alaska and really appreciate the depth they went in telling this story. I also enjoyed that they took the storytelling from the actual individuals, but then recreated them with actors so that we were present and could experience firsthand what was going on at the time of which they were speaking. Thought the editing was great, thought the footage was beautiful, and think they did a really nice job in making a complete piece and telling a story within a story. I really appreciate that the storyteller was talking about this experience of his, but how it related to his belief in God or universal energy or what his religion ended up being. And it took you back to the experiences that drew him to that final conclusion. Even though before he started on this journey, he had a completely opposite mindset, and that he was both open and accepting of the experiences in which he had, that changed that and brought him back to his belief in God. And thought they did a really nice job with this piece.
We heard really amazing stories that they faced around the world with these different animals, and they were crazy to hear and also just so engaging. We also got to see very beautiful visuals of the mountains and of the places that they spend most of their time hunting and traveling in. It was great to see how passionate they were about wildlife, and since they spent so much time there, they had a completely different perspective than someone who only knows about it through TV or movies and stuff like that. And one thing I really enjoyed was how there were actors that would act out what the 2 people were talking about. They would say something and then we would get to visually see it with the actors. So that really helped bring their stories to life. And I really just think that this was an amazing story about friendship and about like wildlife and just how important nature can be to some people. And yeah, for that, I really enjoyed watching this.
One was exceptionally beautiful. It's breathtaking. Not only because of the stories they tell, but also because of the lovely shots of nature. Their photography is amazing. I loved the friendship story that was told and how different obstacles were overcome, how this person is extremely lucky, and how they tie it to a religious belief. It was amazing and incredible, although all the adventures that are told. I loved the shots of the caribou, and the story was exceptionally cute. I found a bit of editing issues and somehow a repetition of the anecdotes, but overall it was wonderful to see this film and I really enjoyed it.
I really liked Alaska Long Hunters for its storytelling. It was really well introduced within the first 10 minutes. I was shown how remote and blessed by wildlife the land in Alaska still is. And there were a lot of really cool scenes and landscapes. One of the cooler scenes that I can pick out is when the bear was walking to the left of the camera, and then the river it was walking along was running right. So there was a lot of movement in that shot for me. I liked that one. Amazing story. There was a little bit of everything for a little bit of everyone here. Mystery, suspense, shocks and surprises. The never-ending threats of the elements, bears, running low on fuel. And then also, in a way, if you examine the facts, there actually might have been a reason that the caribou didn't let Mark land. Beautifully captured documentary, which leaves room to imagine, to wonder, and to ponder.
It was amazing in terms of imagery and footage and the music and overlaying the music with the footage, and just kind of creating that sense of the vast wonder that is the Alaskan wilderness. And I loved how sometimes we would be getting stories about, you know, how hard life was in Alaska and like the high death rate and that struggle for life or death. And having that contrasted with the images of like the mountains and the serene water. And it was just really fascinating. And I loved how it was done. It just kind of captured this beautiful duality that is there. I loved the reenactment. I thought it worked well in terms of changing up what we were seeing, and also giving us a chance to see more of the natural world. And just kind of like see more of the waiting and everything. But there wasn't too much of it. Like I liked in the caribou story how we kind of are left to see in the imagination what it was like for these like caribou, but we get that focus on his perspective from the reenactment. I thought that was really great. Thought that the editing was really nicely done in terms of taking us on the same journey as the pilot, and kind of his experiences as a kid and what he witnessed and how that shaped his worldview and how that changed throughout. And I thought that was really nicely done.
Interesting because of how it is structured. First and foremost, this documentary, the beginning, the first half is very informative and kind of gives context to the area in which the main story that this documentary is concerned with will be featured. So we get a lot of information about the indigenous people of this area, the indigenous animals from that area, how those two different factions interact, often to violent ends throughout history. And then we have this very cinematic story of two friends who enjoy exploring and hunting in these areas, getting into a very serious and life-threatening situation, which for one of them helps them open their eyes to spirituality, which was again an interesting development. The documentary takes you to places you wouldn't necessarily expect it to take you from its onset. It very much becomes a about faith exploration and how circumstances in life can sometimes lead us to reevaluate what we believe beyond the realm of proven logic, let's say. So it is an engaging story on many levels, because it is so many things in one. It is a history lesson about this area, the animals that are indigenous to it, the people who have populated it, about these two men and what they went through, and finally about a spiritual awakening for one of them and how that impacted his life moving forward. So it's a lot wrapped into one, and it does so in a manner that keeps the audience engaged and interested in the subject matter.
I thoroughly enjoyed this one. What a remarkable story told by some just really charming and intelligent people. These bush pilots are I just find them so fascinating. And of course, the other fellow involved, his friend who gets stranded there. I mean, the story itself is just great. It's the kind of thing people build films and TV shows about. And these people are the real deal, and the filmmakers let that sort of innate drama tell itself. Doesn't feel like they forced anything or pushed anything. They sort of just let these fellas tell their story. There's the dramatizations peppered in there for good measure, and it was great. And it just naturally culminated to these really cinematic moments, which then they added some flourishes, because the editing was great, the direction was great. They just did a really good job at telling a really good story. I could see this one even just living as a more fictional feature-length film. I just thought it was that good, that enjoyable. Alaska Long Hunters. Have a look.